Um, Welcome everybody. How are you doing today? It's so very nice to have you here. Many of you have been speaking with me in private sessions about being affected by the recent political events. And so I wanted to speak a little bit about this and difficult events in general, as well as a little about our upcoming 3-week intensive, because these themes really merge or mesh really well. About political events or any events in the world that affect us, that are challenging, as well as any inner events, your life, other people's lives that affect you, that are challenging. Most of all, we need to remember that, of course, this is not in our control. What arises in the world, what arises in our lives, what arises in other people's lives. What is also not in our control, which is often where we have a little bit of a misunderstanding, what is not in our control are the responses that arise within us in response to these situations. That's right, we want to remember that is also not in our control. If we were able to control it, change it, fix it, make it different, we would have, right? So we are not in charge of that as well, not in charge of the world events, other events, life events, not in charge of what arises within. And I want to clarify a little bit what I mean by what arises within. And that's where this theme really meshes well or combines well with the theme of our 3-week intensive, the missing link to awakening, the missing link to living in the world. Because when I say, we are not in charge of how it affects or what arises within, what do I mean by that? Of course, thought, feeling, sensation, emotion arises in response to circumstances. And we tend to go a little more psychological. We tend to go more into thought, into feeling, into emotion. And when I say we want to look at what arises within, I really mean the sensations that are present in your body. The missing link to awakening, the missing link to living in a world is the ability to translate what we really want in a moment, which is to be here. To translate that into an actual action in a moment that helps us to be here, right? That's the missing link. The missing link is, on the one hand, we want to be here, but then events happen, situations happen, life happens, and our nervous systems and brains respond in a certain way. And how do we cross from wanting to be here to actually being able to be here? So noticing sensations in your body, in response to challenging events, so very quickly our nervous systems go into fight, flight, freeze, which then results in overwhelm and collapse. And if that's what happens for you, because for some of us, it remains in the fight or flight. There's a lot of anger, aggravation, frustration. But for some of us, or for many of us, it becomes this powerless, paralyzed feeling, which really is a symptom of overwhelm, which really ultimately is a symptom of the nervous system being in the freeze state. And you see, the freeze state is very difficult to notice. That's the very function of it physiologically. The freeze state is meant to contract, it's meant to freeze, it's meant to protect us from experiencing what's happening, right? So it's very, very difficult to notice because it actually contracts everything. It hides, that kind of tension. So we tend to pay attention to things that are more noticeable, like thoughts or feelings or emotions. However, that free state is what results, again, I want to say that, if in feelings of overwhelm, hopeless, helpless, powerless, that is really the function of our physiology. When our physiology is not, where our bodies are not in a place where they can easily respond to challenge, when we are affected by the free state, then of course we experience these states of, not able to do, not able to function, right? Powerless. So I want to invite us actually for a moment, if you are dealing with politically or in other ways, with any challenging events right now in your life, in the world, in the life of the people that are close to you, take a moment sitting here with your eyes open, and let's take a moment to notice what is actually present on the level of sensation. And here is where the mind often comes in. It wants to take your attention away. It wants to distract you. It wants to explain, understand, figure out. And we really, really just very, very simply, very plainly want to focus on what is present on the level of sensation. Because that's the most direct way to communicate with your nervous system and brain. And also that's the most direct way to come into the moment, to recover the moment. When we are faced with challenging situations, oftentimes that fight, flight, freeze happens so quickly. We lose the ability to be here. We want to recover the moment. Beautiful, beautiful. So whatever is present, it already begins to soften. It already begins to, something begins to change, something begins to move in your experience. Also noticing your feet on the ground, noticing your legs, noticing the weight of your body where you are sitting. Maybe noticing your arms and your hands, just moving them a little bit. Good, good, beautiful, beautiful. And notice that right away there is that softening, opening, slowing down, coming more into the moment, becoming more present. Just take a moment and notice that again. Beautiful, 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 because that's what we really want, right? We want to be here. And I'm going to be speaking more about this and of course practicing this and exploring this together in this upcoming 3-week intensive, as well as other things, nervous system, but also tenderness and trust. All these elements so key to our ability to be here. And that's the missing link between just a desire to want to be here and between actually wanting to or being able to do it in a moment. So notice that again, notice the shift, notice the change. Notice the spaciousness that is here. Already and noticeable right now, so much more. Our true nature. So I'm inviting you to this. And that doesn't mean disengage from the world, Sometimes we need to manage the amount of information. Sometimes that really is too much. But it doesn't mean to disengage. It just means, can we approach the world from the place of being here, right? And if your true and deep desire is to get involved and to do things, go right ahead. Because that's one way the complexity of these situations can be addressed, by actually doing something, right? But if your desire, once you are here, is just to really more deeply rest here, I want you to know that that makes a difference. It makes a difference in your life, so to speak. It makes a difference in other people's life. It makes a difference collectively when there's more interest, more ability to be here. So I'm looking forward to our time together starting on July 21st, and I'm looking forward to your comments, to you subscribing or sharing this, so that more people can benefit from this information.